welcome back to Kayfabe Conversations. Today we have a very special guest all the way from South Africa. We have the owner of HWA and the 12-time Springbok wrestler, the flying Springbok, Steve Eden. Steve, how are you, buddy? How's things?
Buddy, doing very, very well. Summer is starting here in South Africa, so we're all in a good mood.
That's amazing. How I know South Africa has been in a bit of shit with COVID, and you had the riots and stuff recently. How has that affected, one, your wrestling, and two, just life in general? Is everything all right over there for you?
Well, life in general, all of us had to adapt to the COVID regulations of the COVID situation. At the moment, we're sitting where about 5% of our population has been vaccinated. So they've got a project that they're running trying to get everybody vaccinated. That's why all over UK, New Zealand, Australia, they can go back to the stadiums to watch live rugby, soccer and so on. But in South Africa, unfortunately, there's no public allowed to any sporting event at the moment. So that's hit the wrestling industry hard as well. Literally, when we do an event, you're not allowed more than 150 people outside venue, and inside venue, no more than 100 people. Now, the thing is, just as it's frustrating for wrestling, I think it's frustrating for all sports. One, actually, you get a lot of energy from the crowd, and you build on that energy you're receiving from a crowd. When you like 99% done and dusted in this, people cheering for you, you get that extra set of, or that extra boost of energy. And that affects all sports. I mean, have a look at the Olympics. No crowd by the Olympics.
Yeah, the Olympics, watching the Olympics with no fans was actually insane.
Yeah, it was like, it's like it was maybe like a trial for the Olympics or something. It didn't seem like a real thing.
It looks like a school that just took place in a national stadium.
Yeah. Talking about school sport, I've got my two daughters, 15 and 18 years old. They're very much involved in the school sport, in the netball and hockey and athletics. And we literally have to, if you go to one school competing against another, you have to stand outside the school. So we're literally standing on our pickups, on our buckies, and watching over the fence, trying to watch some of the game.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy,
it's
man.
Like,
obviously, so with that, for the rest of sport, how has that affected you guys with wrestling? Because I know you guys had just got your TV deal and everything right before everything kicked off. So did that affect that, or are you guys just doing shows for no people? Like how's that, or have you just not been able to run shows?
HWA Honor Wrestling Association was the only promotion in Africa that got permits to obviously record during the COVID times, and we did our just like WWE and AEW, we did the recordings without fans there. We had to adapt. It's very different wrestling without fans and wrestling with fans there. As I said, you feed off of fans. You work. Obviously, your villains is working on fans and getting their reaction. Babyface is building up and getting that reaction as well. But we've adapted. We went and focused on a lot of smaller shows, so we had to start hitting the pubs and the restaurants. So instead of doing the schools and the festivals, we had to go do a lot of pub shows.
Okay, and then so you're still allowed, what is it, 100 people in a pub?
Yeah, what we're playing around with the figures, because you're allowed into 100 in a pub and 150 outside. So we do the venue outside, and we play around with the figures where, at one stage it might be like 200 outside, but when they do come, the law enforcement comes in, they want to, just check up on it, and then you can still play around, say, listen, there's 100 inside, and then so 150 outside. But typical sportsmen, we're trying to pull the numbers.
Yeah. Well, it's good. At least you're allowed to run some shows, or at least you're capable of doing some shows, because I know, especially talking to some of the guys over in Asia, especially in China and stuff, like wrestling has basically it died for like 18 months almost.
Yeah, no, basically, and that's not, we're not bragging about it or anything. We're quite privileged. We're blessed. We're the only promotion currently in South Africa that's doing shows. There was one promotion that I think did about 2 shows, but we're the only promotion that's going around doing shows. A lot of the guys are looking always at the bigger picture and wanting to do only the big events, where with HWA, we've said I don't care if it's 8 people or if it's 8,000 or 80,000 people. I want to wrestle. I want to get in the ring and I want to wrestle.
It's all about getting the reps in, getting your name out there, getting just anybody, all eyes on the product, right?
No, for sure. And what we've done as well is we've gone onto a couple of platforms. There's a new platform that I started in South Africa called Net Afrikaans. Afrikaans is one of the languages in South Africa, and it's almost like Showmax. So on my platform, we've got 2 programs that we've done. One is a reality program where we've gone and searched for divas, and the second one is just like a chat program in regards to wrestling. So we've tried to follow different routes and to keep a wrestling going, keep wrestling alive at the moment. There's some promotions that haven't, as you said as well, but there's some promotions in South Africa that hasn't trained for the last 2 years. And if the guys haven't trained for 2 years, they're going to lose focus and they're most likely going to leave the sport.
Yeah, they're going to go get a real job, as they would say.
Yeah. I wish people get in the ring and feel what a real job feels like.
Yeah, exactly, right. Okay, well, let's take it back a bit. What are your first memories of wrestling? Like, how did you become a fan of wrestling?
Well, I started as an amateur wrestler. 2 of the great legends in South African wrestling, Donnie Brits and Donnie Voorges. They're actually my uncles and my dad's cousins.
Really?
Yeah, so the family of mine, the legendary Tornado and Donnie Voorges, they were called the Fighting Springboks.
Yeah.
And at that stage, when I was 5 years old, they told my mom said, listen, this kid is hyperactive. I don't know what to do with him. And Donnie said, listen, bring him to the amateur wrestling. So I started doing amateur wrestling since the age of 5. And by the time that, I became a Springbok, 12-time Springbok, number 2 in Africa, top 10 in the world. And I thought which next way to go. Like you've seen with most of the amateur wrestling guys, they either go into professional wrestling or they go into MMA. Yeah. At that stage, MMA wasn't big in South Africa, and I followed for professional wrestling. I followed in the footsteps of my uncles, Donnie Brits and Donnie Voorges.
That's amazing. I didn't realize Tornado was literally your uncle, because as I was doing some research for our interview, I saw Tornado is a big dog over there as well.
Yeah, remember there's 2 Tornadoes. There's original Tornado, which is Donnie Brits. Yeah. Unfortunately, he passed away, the last year. And then there's Tornado 2, which is Steven Davis. Actually, when I got into the professional wrestling, I started wrestling under Steven Davis, Tornado 2. He was my promoter at that stage. We got into TV. There was a program called WWP Thunderstrike. And from there, it just got bigger. And literally 6 years ago, I decided, listen, I need to start my own promotion. I need to get the honor back into wrestling. And I started HWA, Honor Wrestling Association.
That's amazing. Because, literally, actually, in my notes as well, I was thinking, why do you think wrestling hasn't become like, obviously it's growing now, and through my research, I've seen that there are other promotions around South Africa since now you have HWA, but there was the Africa Wrestling Alliance.
Sean Cooney, you have a line of Africa.
Yeah, and then there was Top Star Wrestling.
Yes, Top Star was Paul Lloyd or Justin Gabriel. That was by WWE. His dad was the owner of Top Star Wrestling.
Okay.
Then he had IPW, which was Tornado 2, Steven Davis promotion. He's now started a new promotion called Rockstar Wrestling. Okay. Then you've got SAPW, South African Pro Wrestling, with Kayfabe and them. And then you've got your 1 or 2 smaller promotions.
So do all the promotions around South Africa, do you guys work together a lot? Or is it kind of competitive in your different areas? So like you, Joburg, and then there, Cape Town and Durban or whatever?
Yeah, you know what? It's like in other sport, there's politics around. Yeah. But from HWA's side, we've been trying to work with everybody. I've used wrestlers from CPW. I've used wrestlers from AWA. Myself and Uncle Sean, we get along very, very well. I've used wrestlers from XWE, SAPW. So we've tried to, in our show, although we didn't need to, we've tried to pull in a couple of wrestlers from different promotions to try and build wrestling in South Africa. There is a couple of guys going around saying they want to build wrestling, but as soon as it comes to the shows, they want to have exclusive rights to the shows. And I mean, if you want to build wrestling, the show should be open for everybody.
Yeah. So that's actually crazy. So as you just said there, Justin Gabriel. Outside of I mean, South Africa, you've got Justin Gabriel, sorry, Adam Rose or Leo Kruger.
Yeah,
he was.
His real name is Raymond.
Yeah, his Leo Kruger character in NXT, I thought was absolutely unreal. I hated it when they made him Adam Rose, the party boy, whatever. Because if you
know what, I don't think that fits it.
No.
My personal opinion, when Raymond, Leo Kruger, just came at the wrong time. He was too much of the same look as Roman Reigns.
Yes.
And obviously him being family with The Rock and all of them, he obviously got pushed a bit more. My thing is Justin Gabriel, phenomenal wrestler, high flyer, the sexy boy. And then Raymond is a phenomenal worker, very technical worker and so on. I had some great matches with Raymond where literally, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like when Leo Kruger, let's call him on his wrestling name, when myself and Leo Kruger wrestled, when the crowd starts getting quiet, you know you're having a good match. Because then you have all these technical aspects where they're just sitting and they're looking in awe. And now and again, they're popping when you want them to pop, and the rest of the time, you're controlling them like a puppet.
Right.
And he's phenomenal. Leo Kruger is absolutely phenomenal.
Do you find that the South African style, like what you were just saying there, is almost like the Asian Japanese style, where like the crowd are kind of quiet, and then when they see a good spot, then they clap, and then it's quiet? Or is it more like the American style, where there's just chanting the whole match, and it's just chaos?
I think it's a little bit of a combination of both. It depends on the type of match that you got. We got these high-flying matches, so oaks are like, whoa, and they watch it. And when you get a technical match, the oaks are just sitting back and appreciating what's going on. So we've got a little bit of everything. South Africa being one of your, like I say, top 10 violent countries in the world, the people tend to want blood more. So it's as we say, they want Skopskiet and Dorner. So, they want to see the hard connection. You got a lot of with New Japan. You can literally see where the oak is setting up for a move, and the people are waiting, and the wrestling crowd there knows. Listen, this is a scripted match, and they know what's coming. But they know this guy's waiting for a move, and they appreciate the move that's happening. And a lot of times it's a high-flying move with, let's say, a somersault and a twist included, and it's amazing. I can't do half of that stuff. But when you get to South Africa, they tend to want the more, I would say, hardcore wrestling in the sense of not a lot of weapons used, but in the fact of when the punch connects, they want to see it connect. They don't want to see the setup to a move. They don't want to see the guy selling towards a move. They want to see the moves happening as if it's a real bar fight.
Right, so you're not getting all the AEW leg slaps and stuff.
Yeah, you got your one or two guys doing that and so on. And, when you do it at the right time, it's effective.
Yeah.
I tend to do it when I do a drop kick because this gives that oomph to the move. Right. But if you do literally doing it in a match 8, 9, 10 times, it loses the whole... I can say the focus of.
Right. If you hear the same noise every time, from a punch to a kick to a chop,
then
it loses it, right? Yeah, absolutely. So why do you think like WWE has started coming to South Africa the last 5-10 years, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think pro wrestling hasn't become as big in South Africa as, say, the UK or Japan?
In South Africa, your biggest sports is basically your soccer, your rugby, and your cricket.
Yeah.
South Africa tends to be with other sports, and I include wrestling, and I include amateur wrestling, karate, judo, even your boxing. It's become it's only a certain amount of people or certain group of people that goes and watches those events. I always say, in our younger days, when guys like Jan Wilkins, Donnie Brits, Donnie Fugers, those acts were wrestling. the stadium or the halls were packed.
Right.
Since it's been WWE's come onto TV in South Africa, and it's literally on every single day, and on TV in South Africa, people tend to not go to the live events that much. Just your hardcore wrestling fans will basically go through to your wrestling events, but most of the people at home, with the fact that it's become so open by WWE that it's it's showmanship and it's scripted and so on. A lot of the South African people has lost focus on it, and they've tend to now gone over to the MMA scene, where they're now going watching EFC and your contact sport.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting because I find in Southeast Asia, especially recently in the last, say, 2 or 3, maybe not 2 years, because of COVID has made it different, but say 5 years, the indie scene around Asia has kind of blown up. Like you go to the Philippines, they've got 3 companies. Hong Kong has their own wrestling company. Obviously Japan, but now like places like Nepal and India are popping up their own wrestling companies. Is it like that around the rest of Africa? Like do Zimbabwe and other African countries have wrestling, or are most of them in South Africa?
South Africa is, I would say, your main pro wrestling scene in Africa. But you do have wrestling promotions in, for example, in Congo, Nigeria. So you do have other promotions. The wrestling style also differs from it, and that's something interesting that I found out as well recent from going in, and obviously with COVID you're checking a lot of YouTube and you got the time around and checking a lot of videos and stuff, and when you get to Congo and most places, they tend to believe in witchcraft. Right. So a lot of the matches involves that, where this guy would be wrestling and he would be working. The next moment, this guy puts a glove on, and I wrestled with one old man from Congo, for example. And this guy was like 62 years old. And I wrestled him and I worked him and I tried to put him over because obviously we were in Congo and it's his home fans and so on. And the next moment, this guy put a white glove on, and for the hell of me, this guy wouldn't sell. Didn't matter if you punched him, kicked him, he wouldn't sell because this glove made him immortal and nobody could hurt him.
Is it just a whole load of Papa Shangos?
Yeah. They tend to believe in a witchcraft, and it's actually quite interesting. Like the one wrestler, these 2 twins. The one guy would be in the ring wrestling, and his brother would be outside controlling him in a match. So it has a lot to do with the showmanship. I must say, they're very good in the showmanship and so on. And when they do tend to come through to South Africa and they train with our promotions here, but those acts, especially the acts from Congo, they're very, very good in regards to their high-flying moves and being able to do somersaults and moonsaults and all those type of things. So they learn very quick and they adapt very quick. In beginning, communication is a problem, but as soon as that's in wrestling, everybody tends to, you can be from anywhere in the world. As soon as you start just showing what you want to do, everybody picks up on it. Yeah. So there's a special language in wrestling.
Yeah, it is. It's like I was talking to some of the Hong Kong guys, and they said they were working a couple of the Japanese guys who didn't speak a word of Mandarin, Cantonese, or even English. And they said, so how do you talk? And it's like, we just wrestle. And then they pick up what you're doing in the ring, and they're like, okay, this is kind of what he wants to do. And you can say, like, if you say clothesline, they kind of know what you mean or whatever, stuff like that. But trying to work in the match when neither of you speak the same language must be pretty crazy. But do you just basically back yourself to know that, yeah, we can still put on a good match here?
Yeah, well, as we say, it's like riding a bicycle. As soon as you know exactly what you're doing and you've been in the ring for a couple of years and so on, it's easy. You can make anybody look like a pro. Yeah. So I always say, and that's a thing that I learned very quickly from Tornado 2, from Steve and HWA. He always taught me, the better you make your opponent look, the stronger you will look when you come back. So that's one thing that I always tell
my takes 2 to tango.
Yeah, and I mean, the more you with a wrestling where you've got the baby face and you've got the heel, the more you can build pity onto the baby face, the bigger the comeback is when he comes back. And that's what wrestling is about, telling that story. I always say, doesn't matter if it's somebody that's 10 years old or somebody that's 50 or 200 years old. And if it's a man or woman, there is always some character at a wrestling show that they take to and that they support. Be it a clown, be it a Viking character, be it a Steven Eden or a Kurt Angle or John Cena. There's always somebody that these guys tend to focus more on and that they support more, and they can actually live into that fight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Do you find in South Africa or in African wrestling as a whole, is it more character-based wrestling? Because as you said, you were a 12-time Springbok wrestler, so you had the amateur background. Is that what made you go from the amateur, as you said, your family? Is that why you went from the amateur wrestling into the pro wrestling as opposed to the MMA?
Yeah, as I said, at that stage, the MMA wasn't so big. And, obviously with Donnie Bridge and Donnie Focus being my uncles and so on, yeah, I wanted to follow in their footsteps. There was a couple other guys that I looked up at, like Jan Wilkins, Tornado 2, Stephen Davis. So there was a lot of idols. But growing up, if you're in amateur wrestling, you always look at the professional wrestlers. And you always idolize us on. And that was the next step for me to take. But yeah, South African wrestling is very character-based. You've got your different characters at a show, very theme-based in regards to the clothing, the music, the style of wrestling. And a lot of the guys tend to adapt their style to their character.
Okay, that's awesome. And do you find that you have not segregated audiences, but do you find it's different when you go to certain places in South Africa? Do you have a mostly black audience or whatever, or are you in just Joburg and you're just sitting there with all the white Afrikaans guys, or is it mixed? Like how are the crowds?
No. It differs, especially with us now being on, as we said, we've got the TV program running. We've got 8.7 million viewers currently, and it's still building up and increasing. Your bigger fan bases of wrestling in South Africa is your colored and your black people. Right. They tend to buy in it, where the white people tend to stand back and say, yeah, I can do that. But when you wrestle in your different areas, I take wrestling in Johannesburg and wrestling in Durban and wrestling in Cape Town. It's 3 different ways. The Cape Town crowd, they tend to be more about the moves, and they interactive with the moves and they appreciate the moves. Where if you wrestle in Durban, they're all about chirping the heel and making the heels laugh hell.
Yeah.
And then when you get to Johannesburg's a very technical wrestling, and they like the high-flying wrestling as well. So they've got a bigger knowledge of the wrestling as well. But overall, you've got your different crowds, and you've got your different venues as well. Like when you wrestle by a school, obviously you're not going to put on hardcore matches and stuff. And when we're wrestling at the pubs now, we can actually bring in the hardcore matches. So that's one thing that's changed, where HWA started off as a family-orientated wrestling promotion with no swearing, no signs, and no blood. Now we've actually moved on to the hardcore scene by the pubs, and we're still doing our family-orientated shows. But when we do a show by the pub, okay, there's still no swearing, there's still no signs and so on, because there is still youngsters around. But we tend to now bring in like the barbed wire and the keyboards and the guitars and those type of things.
That's awesome. So when you were starting to train, as you mentioned, with your uncles and your family and stuff, did you ever have the opportunity to travel to, say, the US or the UK or Asia, or did you keep all your wrestling in South Africa and around Africa?
Well, amateur wrestling-wise, I traveled all over the world. I traveled obviously to Europe, and I traveled down to Australia. Amateur wrestling-wise, one thing I can say that nobody in South Africa can say, I wrestled against Kurt Angle in the year that he became Olympic champion.
Really?
So I wrestled him at World Championships in Las Vegas. And man, oh man, that guy is strong.
Yeah.
Down to earth, but freaking strong as an ox.
Have you got any footage of that?
No, unfortunately not. That's one thing that I'm very technology-wise, at that stage when we were wrestling, there wasn't Facebook and all those type of things, and that would have been so great, because now if I have a look at a lot of my mates that's doing amateur wrestling still, their matches, as they're wrestling into World Championships and the Commonwealth Games all over, it's uploaded onto a page and you can watch it live and you can watch. But I do have a couple of photos when I was younger and when I was wrestling and stuff. But video-wise, I think I've got one video left that, you know, at that stage everything was beta, and I still wanted to bring it over to VHS and now to CDs. So I'm gonna still do that. I actually do have stuff on beta tape, but to try and find a beta player at this stage is like trying to find one of those old telephone booths and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. So why do you think? So also your character, the flying Springbok Steve Eden, you wear the Springbok flag, South African flag, and everything. Is that based off of your amateur wrestling days?
Yeah, it's based on two ways, and you know, let's be honest. A lot of guys, you know, when they look at characters and stuff for the wrestling, they tend to look at your bigger promotions like your WWE and those promotions. And myself coming in being a Springbok amateur wrestler, and I had a look and I thought, listen, I wrestle against Kurt Angle. This guy's coming out, he's proud to USA, wearing his Olympic medal. And I said, what the hell? I'm proud to South Africa. So let me come out with my South African outfit, and Shoza Loza is playing, or MP. And, you know, we've got a lot of, we both come out of the same background.
If you saw that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, you know, I've got a lot of, you do get your little haters out there that, oh, you're a copycat of Kurt Angle. And I'm like, bro, that's an honor. You're not insulting me. You actually, what's blessing me and telling me that I'm a copy of Kurt Angle.
South African Kurt Angle.
If I can be 50% of the rest of it Kurt Angle is, that will be amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing. But then why do you think that, aside, like we said, we had Justin Gabriel, Leo Kruger, Angelico, who's in AEW. He's actually cousins with a friend of mine in Hong Kong, which is insane.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is crazy.
He's amazing guy.
And I've never met him, but I'm quite good friends with his cousin. And but why do you think South Africa hasn't produced more? Well, not produced more, but why do you think they haven't been given the chance to be on the bigger scale? Is it because WWE doesn't come over as often, or do you think it's just
you know what? I think the one thing that we had there's one of my mates, Exterminator. He looks like Brock Lesnar. I probably think he's a little bit bigger than Brock Lesnar, but besides,
sure.
He was over in the US and he went to the trials, and they actually gave him a development contract. But, you know, when you have a look at the development contract that he got, I think he would have been paid like $1,500 a month. And in South African rands, it's like 25,000 rands, which is a decent amount of money. But for him, it wasn't worthwhile. You know, he was earning like 3 times that a month with his business that he was running. We have 1 or 2 other guys that are very, very talented. We got a Nanzi that unfortunately hurt his back and he couldn't go to WWE. He also amazing worker. We've got a couple of youngsters coming up, like myself as well.
But one things I absolutely loved about you guys, and one of the main reasons I reached out to you was I started watching the promo deal you put out. Like the best promo gets 5,000 rand or whatever it was.
Yes,
and then these guys just started dropping promos on there. I was so close to dropping one myself, and then I thought, no, I'm actually just going to interview you instead. Because I thought the idea of it was amazing. Just like absolutely awesome. Anybody who wants to drop a promo, let's see what you got.
No, that's the thing. You know what? I believe in creating opportunities. Let's be honest. If there is people that come out of poverty and so on in South Africa, and if I can give somebody the opportunity to be on national TV, just that opportunity for them alone will mean a lot. But maybe you just find that one jewel, and you find the next Justin Gabriel, the next Leo Kruger.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. You know, myself, I'm too old for that now. I just wrestle to entertain and still be involved in wrestling. I will always be involved in wrestling. My last move will probably be a suplex on the way to my grave. But I'll always be involved in wrestling. But I need to build up for the younger generation. So I want to create opportunities for them.
Yeah, no, and honestly, I think it's amazing. And when I started watching it, that's when I started going through a bunch of South African wrestling stuff. And then when you agreed to do the interview, I started doing more research about South African wrestling and everything like that. And I think it's just something that I don't think they even do that even in Hong Kong or in Japan or anywhere. I've never seen a promoter say, okay, guys, anyone around the world, drop a promo and let's see who's got what. And some of the promos that you got were fucking awesome.
Yeah. Listen, it's like anything else. It's like a reality TV. You had your good ones out there and you had your shocking ones. But I mean, I had some oaks insulting me, and one oak called me a flying hippo. So instead of a flying Springbok. Yeah. So, but that's what it's about. Realizing that it's a promo, it's nothing personal, and giving these oaks opportunity. That's one thing, maybe I can just bring that up, that I've realized in South Africa as well, is the guys tend to, especially the promoters, tend to be like, I don't want to mention another promoter's name and so on. And the only way to build it up where South Africa is going to become like the international wrestling promotions is by mentioning names like Mark Beale from CPW, Sean Kuhn, the Lion of Africa from AWA, Kerry Kayfabe from SAPW, and Tornado from Rockstar. You know, once we get past that thing of, you know, I don't want to mention another promoter. We're doing podcasts. You got guys doing podcasts, and they're too afraid to just mention another promoter or another wrestler from another promotion. How are you going to build up wrestling if you're not opening up a platform?
Absolutely. Honestly, that was one of the main reasons why I even thought about starting Ultimate Wrestling Asia. Yeah. And the whole idea was basically take the old NWA territory system and bring it to Asia, because right now it's exactly what you just said. There's only one in Hong Kong, so there's no competition. But you go to the Philippines, there's two, and they don't want to work to each other. They don't want to work with each other. You go to Korea, there's only 2 or 3. They don't want to work with each other. It's like, how do you expect people in your country to give a fuck about wrestling if none of you want to talk about wrestling with each other?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's different. Well, one thing the promoters must realize, it's different when you get to a sport like rugby or cricket, where it's a competitive game for you know, to obviously get a winner out of it. But when it comes to wrestling, we're there to entertain the crowd. We're there for that person sitting in the crowd, the wrestling fan, for an hour or two, to get them to forget about all the stress at home, all the financial problems, or the wife that's giving you a hard time, or the mother-in-law, or whatever the case might be, and to just focus on the wrestling and get involved in the wrestling. And, you know, that's what the Oaks tend to forget. They tend to forget, but it's about the love of the sport. Myself, I've got my business that I'm running. I'm not doing wrestling for the love of money. I'm doing wrestling for the love of the sport. And there's a lot of guys going around saying they're doing it for the love of sport, but they're more doing it for the love of the money in their pocket. And as soon as they get away from it, you know, the big money will come. If you do, like, we've got a lot of small shows that we do, and then you get your bigger shows where the money comes in. So, you know, I believe a wrestler should never ever wrestle for free. He should get paid for every wrestling show. But yes, you can't pay him, I'm just throwing out a figure there, $10,000 for each match. There will be some times where he has to wrestle for $500. But those 4 or 5 shows that he's done, there might just be a person in the crowd watching that will book you for that show.
Exactly, because that brings me on to my next point, actually. I've seen that you guys at HWA do stuff from literally kids' birthday parties to like a country fair to your own shows, and now you've got your TV show. But the fact that you guys are doing kids' parties, and I go through some of the Facebook photos on the HWA site, and you see the smile on these kids' faces because you've got you and a couple of other guys there. I can't remember the clown's name.
Rejected Clown.
Yes, that's it. Yes, amazing. Yeah. Also, what a gimmick, by the way. But yeah, you guys are like kids' parties, and like after you have a couple of matches, the kids are going apeshit for it, and then you guys are taking photos, and the kids have you in headlocks and stuff like that. Like that must make. Imagine you have like your 10th birthday, and then the flying Springbok is in your backyard doing suplexes and stuff. Like that would blow my mind as a kid.
You know where it comes in. When I was a youngster, you walked out and you saw Donnie Brits, Donnie Furkers, and those guys. And even now, at this age, if I have to run into, for example, the Undertaker or Triple H, I'm a mock. I want
Yeah.
a signature. I want a photo. And that's the thing that we want to bring to the kids. I mean, for me, I want to be in the wrestling ring. I don't care, as I said, if it's 80,000 people, 8 people, or a kids' party, I'm going to put on the same show, and I'm going to be afterwards with the fans and taking a photo and giving an autograph. And if I can make a kid's life special, why not? I mean,
Yeah.
I've got a party that we did for a kid 5 years ago, and every year that kid still phones us and it's like, no, his greatest birthday party was when we were there wrestling. I've got a kid in Uppington. He's in a wheelchair. I think he's now turning 27, 28. From the first show that I did in front of him and I met his mom, every year on his birthday, I phone him and we talk. And yes, he can't speak fluently, but we speak to each other and we understand each other and we discuss wrestling. And he always wants to know, where's Mr. Wrestling? Where's Anansi? Where's myself? How's everybody doing? How's the wrestling? When are we coming to wrestle there again? And that's what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that you guys do that, I think, is a testament to yourself and HWA, which also brings me to the name HWA. So when you decided, I think 6 years ago, you mentioned, right? What made you? What made you decide, right, I'm done working with these other promotions, AWA, WWP, whatever. I need to start my own, and we're going to call it Honor Wrestling Association. Where did that come from?
Well, the thing is, I wanted to bring back the glory days in wrestling, and I wanted to bring back the time like when, as I said, Donnie Brits, Donnie Focus, Sean Kuhn, those oaks, they were the top oaks. You came to a wrestling event. You did not see that wrestler until he came out to the ring and he wrestled and he went backstage and I only saw him afterwards after you waited for your autograph and so on. And I wanted to get the professionalism back and I wanted to get the honor back. As with any business, there's been cases where Oaks has been promised this amount of money for a show and it doesn't happen. And I tend to work with my guys, and as I said, there's smaller paying shows and there's bigger paying shows. But before a guy confirms the show, I say to him, listen, we got show A, there's the pay is going to be X amount, we're traveling on a Friday, we're coming back on a Sunday, are you in, yes or no? And my guys know, but if I commit to an amount that they're getting paid, and doesn't matter what the amount is, they're getting paid that amount. Because I feel in the end, you know, when you promise somebody something, you must deliver on what you're promising. That guy spends time away from his family, time away from his wife and his kids. He's on the road there to put his body on the line and entertain the fans. So the least you can do is if you promise him, I'm throwing out amount again, $1,000, you give him $1,000. And yes, there are some promoters that's doing that, and there's some promoters that's playing around with the money. And there's a lot of guys that they just want that money literally, and I used to do this. When I come back from a wrestling show, the money that I made with that wrestling show, I didn't go and put it in a bank zone. I tend to, when I came back, I tell my kids, listen, let's go to the shop and we buy a whole bag of sweets and cold drinks, and we come back and we sit and watch movies and we eat sweets and we just spend time. So I wasn't wrestling for the money. I was wrestling for the fact that I love the sport, I love entertaining the fans. And when I came back to from a show to my family, I want them to know, listen, I did enjoy the time there, but it was worthwhile as well. You know, imagine now coming back, you're going away for 3-4 days, and you come back and you literally don't have any money left. The money you had to spend for food on that side. So, you know, there's a lot of, but...
And there's a lot of stories as well, right? You hear some stories about some indie guys and there's fucking shit.
Yeah, that happens all over the world. And that's one thing of sorry for it, but that pisses me off. You know, for me, it's, you know, look after the wrestlers. Don't promise them anything that you won't deliver on. I mean, you've had guys that promised for TV for the last 8-9 years. I mean, when they take they literally phone the guys behind the promoters' backs, and then that's when the promoters get peed off with each other. Where my guys know, when I'm busy with a contract, I tell them exactly what we're busy with. Even with a proposal for a wrestling show, and we do a proposal and I give the festival a set amount that we're going to charge for the show. My guys know it's an open book. They can come check how much we're charging for the show and how much everybody is getting paid. And that's something that I'm doing different as well. by my promotion, the referee gets paid the same amount as the wrestler. You know, you get a lot of promotions where the wrestler will get a fast match, he will get $50.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the wrestler is wrestling one fight, but the referee is out there for 6 fights. So my referees gets paid exactly the same amount as the wrestlers. But that's my way of doing things. Some of it I believe I'm doing right, and some now and again, you know, I do make mistakes.
But that's
the only
amazing.
way we get to learn.
I think you're the first person I've ever spoken to who said that about referees. I think in person, or actually the first promoter I've spoken to who's even mentioned referees. I think people completely forget about them. They are as big a part of a match sometimes as the rest.
Not bigger.
Yeah.
If not bigger. But the same with your commentators. My commentators get paid the same as a referee and the same as a wrestler as well. Without a referee and without a commentator, you can't have a wrestling match.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like watching the thriller on TV and having the sound off. It's not going to have the same effect. And that's the thing. And you know, I've always got my commentator traveling with on road shows. We make sure that there's always a portable mic. You need to have a crowd know what's going on, what promos are being run. They need to hear the promos and then they'll react to it. So we're actually going to start up our proper YouTube page. So that's one thing that I've been neglecting at the moment. So we actually want to start doing our road shows and, you know, putting those fights on and everything onto the YouTube page as well.
That's awesome. So we mentioned briefly before, you've got your HWA your shows now on Soweto TV.
Yeah.
How did that deal come about, and how is that? Where are you filming those shows? Because did that deal come about during COVID, or was that before COVID, and then they just stuck with the deal anyway?
Well, what happened is we started negotiating. You've got a couple of 2 big national TV channels, which is your SABC and your ETV, and you've got your DSTV, so actually 3. And we started chatting with them and everything, but there's so much focus on a moment, and unfortunately in South Africa, in regards to the politics involved. Yeah. So, you know, if you literally don't have that person that you're bribing to get into the show, and, you know, I was told up straight, if I want to do a show on one of the national channels, I have to have 60% black wrestlers. Now, for me to promote black wrestlers,
as well, right?
Yeah,
same.
And for me, you know, I'm all about developing sport in South Africa and developing wrestling, and that's why we brought the promos out as well. You know, to find those wrestlers out there, or even managers or commentators, and then be able to bring it in. But when I spoke to Soweto TV, which is majority a black channel, they were like, bring the wrestling. For them, it was about the sport, you know, having a South African program or South African version of WWE on national TV. And, you know, from there we arranged, but everything was arranged literally from when it was signed, the recordings and getting the wrestlers there, everything was arranged in 2 weeks. So I had to sit down and write storylines for 2 weeks. So it was quite hectic.
That is hectic, but I'll tell you something absolutely crazy. I only heard about Soweto TV because of your show and then your national deal. And then what I realized is I have IPTV here in Hong Kong. So we get UK, US, and obviously as my wife is South African, we get the South African channels. And I scrolled through like our 900 channels and found Soweto TV.
Okay, so I can say I've actually promoted them as well.
So you're airing your shows, your HWA shows in Hong Kong at like 2 a.m. in the morning.
Oh man, it's so awesome.
Dude, it was
I promise you, I'm going to mention it on my page because how many promotions South Africa can say, man?
Dude, how many, like we don't even have WWE over here, but we have HWA. Literally, I had two Afrikaans friends come around for the Lions games, and we were watching it. And I'm Irish, my wife is South African, and our 2 friends South African as well, both from Cape Town. We sit down to watch the rugby, but before they came in, I put Soweto TV on just to see what they would say. And I walk out, and they're like, "Wait, what the fuck? How do you have this?" And I was like, "Yeah."
How awesome is that? How awesome is that? Yeah. And you know what's the best? Our commentator, We shot the program in the top part of South Africa, northwest side. The editing was done in Johannesburg side, and then our commentators from the UK.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So our commentator for the program, he was from the UK and everything. So he's actually now gone on to a couple of bigger promotions and so on. But we'll always, be able to chat to him and get him involved again. But we've got a phenomenal commentator down in Cape Town that I am going to speak to him and bring him in for the next show. But he's called Mr. Paul. His real name is Carl, but he goes by the announcing name of Mr. Paul. And this oak is phenomenal. He literally sounds like a WWE commentator sitting there, and the way he just does it is amazing.
That's awesome. So do you when your shows are on Soweto TV, are they the announcers in English, or are they in Afrikaans or Zulu, or do you have a bunch of different, like, what's the...
Well, the first ones, we actually recorded for the program in Afrikaans. It would have been for Afrikaans channel, and with the COVID coming in, they just put it on hold. So we're still busy with the Afrikaans channel. It's like 99% signed. So we'll be announcing that. I tend to normally announce this when it's 100% done deal.
Yeah.
You get a lot of things falling out of the last little bit of admin work and stuff being done. But we literally started you'll hear a lot of the wrestlers in the ring actually speak to each other in Afrikaans. And then the commentator is English. So what we've decided with, when we're going on to the national channel now, and that will also be announced at a later stage, but we're going to have a African language, we're going to have an Afrikaans and an English commentator. So we can have 3 commentators in 3 different languages. Because South Africa's got 11 different languages.
Yeah. It's crazy. That's why I asked, because obviously I know how diverse it is over there, so it would be crazy. But also, I'm just picturing a live event with like the old WWF, where it's the French guys, the Germans, and the Spanish announce table. It's like, oh, the Afrikaans announce table, he gets powerbombed through it again. Like, oh, exactly. There's 4 Afrikaans guys.
No, we literally gonna have 3 angles. We're gonna have 3 tables around the ring. And you're going to have an English commentator sitting there, Afrikaans commentator, and then your African language commentator.
That's amazing. So, that's literally amazing. That's like WWE pay-per-views.
Yeah. And you know how much work it takes. And luckily, I'm not too involved in that technical side of it. But to record one program, one series, and you've got these 3 different commentators that's being recorded with the action happening. Yeah. So they're doing 3 recordings at once.
Yeah, it's basically 3 live shows in one go, right?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Because what we're going to do is we're going to do that commentating live while we're recording, whereas for our first season, we did voiceovers. So our commentating was voiceovers. So with the next series, we won't be able to we can do the voiceovers, but then you tend to lose the focus of a crowd being involved. So that's the one thing we're sitting with at the moment. We would have had recordings, and I've postponed it a bit, because I actually want to try and bring in some sort of crowd. We could have had another lockdown recording, which is cool to have, but I want to bring in that little bit of feel of crowd, even if it's just 500 people for now.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little bit of a...
Well, also, and also the wrestlers feed off of that as well. And even the commentators, they feed off of the crowd. You feel the difference. Watching WWE with no crowd, I've found quite difficult. That's why I've actually turned to a lot more of the indie stuff, even the local indie stuff. Like I watch like Malaysian wrestling and stuff, and that's actually how I found you guys as well. South African wrestling. I watch your shows and stuff, and I actually find myself getting more engrossed in like an HWA show than I would a WWE show, because I'm like, holy shit, I have no idea what is gonna happen. Like, who are these guys? Whereas in WWE, it's like, oh, cue music, cut the promo, someone interrupts, and then they fight, and then ugh.
You know what was a good thing about that recording as well, except for the fact that we couldn't have fans there, and we had to improvise and get used to the fact that you have to try and work with camera angles instead of the fans. Yeah. You would see there wasn't a lot of high flying. It was all mostly technical wrestling and storytelling. Because obviously you couldn't get a big hall for it because of a COVID stance. We had to use a smaller venue. And this venue didn't allow us to do moonsaults and do top half flying moves and stuff.
Right.
So you had a lot of us had to improvise on the wrestling style. But that makes it so great because now when we do a second or third season, we can actually bring in a little bit more, and build up on it. So the fans can actually see how the wrestler grows. And, yeah, I tended to go back to my amateur wrestling in the days and bring in a couple of amateur wrestling moves.
Oh,
so
yeah.
the people, they enjoyed that quite a lot.
You taking them to
yeah,
City?
Yeah, for sure. Belly to belly.
Nice. So
Yeah.
with the TV deal and everything, and with COVID, hopefully, let's say in the next 12 to 18 months, settling down, and you guys get more vaccinations over in South Africa, what's the plan for HWA? Are you planning do you guys ever tour? Would you tour around Africa?
That's the one thing that we would have done with Soweto TV is we would have toured across the country, and we literally gonna have, just as the COVID starts opening up, we're gonna have a second season airing. So it's gonna create that vibe again. It's gonna get the fans involved again, and we will be touring all the major towns. We will be in Cape Town, Johannesburg. We'll be in Port Elizabeth. We'll be down in Durban, Bloemfontein. So we're going to be touring all the different venues, but then we're going to focus on the settlements as well. So we'll be going through to the black areas like Soweto TV. The one thing that I wanted to set up and I haven't had the chance to do it due to COVID is I want to have an open day in Soweto. Now, Soweto is one of the biggest townships in South Africa.
Yeah.
I want to have an open day where the guys come through, they register in the morning. It will be on a Saturday and a Sunday, and they go through trials on that Saturday and Sunday. A lot of it, similar to the WWE trials, but it will be more a relaxed environment. We will come and do a couple of fitness tests. We'll run a couple of camera angles and see how they work with camera angles, and we can do a promo. And then we'll show him 2 or 3 different bumps and see if I can run the ropes and do a couple of bumps. So we might, let's say there's 1,000 guys coming through to that event. You might pick up 10 or 20 potential future wrestlers.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing, man. And also, I think being on Soweto TV and doing stuff like that, you're going to get more people from those areas or people who are even watching that channel, boom, on your product. And that's something I found South African sport, as you mentioned before, with the diversity rules, is something that you will help you blow up. Because the whole 6% rule is ridiculous, I think, in any country, never mind South Africa. But I think if you guys could do that and hit those areas, you could absolutely blow up, and that would be amazing.
My thing is as I said in the beginning, there should be a different races and different wrestlers involved. But the fact that they're saying to us 60%, it makes it a bit difficult. But we want to have a colored wrestler, the Indian wrestler, the black wrestlers, the Congolese, the Nigerian, the white wrestlers. We want to have a taste of the whole of Africa, and get that into one program. So that's the one thing that we tending on doing. Diva wrestling has died down in South Africa. So that's the one thing that HWA has done as well. So we've gotten divas in and we've trained them. In that regards, the COVID's been a blessing because we've actually gotten time to spend with these girls and to properly train them before they get into a wrestling ring. One thing that I've seen in South Africa, and that tends to happen all over the world, is they tend to bring a wrestler into the ring too early. The guy's been training for 2 or 3 months and they stick him in the ring. You need to be, it's like any other sport, have all the basics down and be self-confident and know that you can run a match before you get into the ring. You still need to keep a kayfabe about the matches on. And when you tend to put the youngsters in before they're ready to get in a ring, that's where you lose a lot of the kayfabe of wrestling.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. When you see, and also but it even happens in WWE. I remember one of the funniest things I saw when Sheamus walked over to Randy Orton. These guys have like 20 world titles between them, and he walks over, pulls the mic down, and goes, "What's my line?" And you're like, "What? What? What the fuck? Slap something, do anything. Do not say ever, 'What's my line?' on national TV."
But that's the one thing that I saw when WWE was here. It's actually amazing how much of it is edited. You know, and listen, all over the world, a guy misses a punch, a guy misses a kick. But when we watch a live show, being a wrestler and knowing what to look out for, was amazing how many punches was short, didn't connect, how many gaps there was. Like a kick, when the kick is like for Oak's half a hand away from Oak's face, stuff like that. Yeah. But listen, you asked what is the future for HWA for the next year, 2 years, when COVID opens up. But one thing we definitely want to do is we want to go all over Africa. I've spoken to 4 different countries at the moment where it is in the pipeline and everything, and we want to go and hit the European scene. The next step for us after Africa is to go European scene and then to the Eastern countries. And for wrestlers as well, you know, in regards to going to the bigger bowling, instead of going directly to WWE like Angelico did, go to the like he went to New Japan.
Lucha Underground. That's where I knew him and I loved him.
A lot of the guys tend to forget you need to first build this name internationally before you can go to the bigger promotions. And that's the one thing that I want to do is I want to create those opportunities for South African wrestlers. I am currently in negotiations with another promoter to buy over his promotion. It's not that I want to take over the scene in South Africa, but if I can build another area, including we're more in Johannesburg area, and if I can build another area and broaden the horizons and give more wrestlers opportunity, why not? That's the way that I see it.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, it will be an honor for me having some of the guys over here and giving a lot of my guys and some of the other South African guys the opportunity to wrestle against internationals. And, you know, we tend to learn from each other. As I said to you, you know, like when I wrestled against that old man with a glove and everything, it seems funny and stupid, but actually I learned in regards to their beliefs and how much they go into the whole showmanship in regards to like we tend to get to the show and you put up your character in the show, and then when you get home you're the normal average guy. But with them, even when they're out in public or they're at home, this is their character.
They're living
their Kayfabe is so big.
Yeah.
So that glove, nobody touches it, goes back in that little box, and everybody knows you don't touch that box, because if you touch that box, you're going to get assaulted by this wrestler.
Yeah, it's like the or something, right? Like it's
yeah, like you know, what's the name did with the Undertaker with the urn?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Honestly, it's amazing to hear someone basically on my wavelength, but so on the opposite end of the world. So it's nice to know that not WWE aren't just brainwashing everybody. But honestly, Steve, I don't want to take up any more of your time. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been amazing to talk to you. It's nice to get, honestly, another perspective on wrestling from somewhere where you don't hear a whole lot about wrestling from. So hopefully people will see our interview and get more eyes on HWA. And honestly, as soon as travel opens up, I will be at the next HWA show. Trust me, mate. Front row in my UWA shirt, chanting for the Flying Springbok.
No, we'll definitely, and it will be awesome to have you here. Thank you very much for having me on the program, and you know, to the wrestling fans out there, keep supporting wrestling. Doesn't matter where in the world it is, just keep supporting wrestling. Just be the fans that you are, enjoy the sport, and you know, come up to any wrestler, get that autograph, get that photo taken, and I promise you, it's an honor for us to give that autograph to somebody or take a photo with him. And then when you're here, we'll have a prize. I'll make sure you get a hell of a lot of biltong, and we'll have a beer or two as well.
A beer or two, absolutely. All right, Steve. Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you coming on. I'll speak to you soon. Take care, brother.
Cool. Peace out.
Thanks, bro. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.